So I think Mercedes were, as much as trying to undercut Max Verstappen, I think they were just forcing him to pit, and then they cover him off and win the race. But it didn't work out like that, and that's because this lap for Verstappen, lap 18, was huge. 18 for Verstappen, the lap he pitted, his outlap compared to 18 for Hamilton, his in-lap on the used mediums, was a massive difference. And this caught Mercedes out, and it was a brilliant bit of driving from Verstappen, and the Red Bull car, slightly better in this phase. It also fires up the tyres a bit better, and they caught Mercedes napping. Now, how do you do the perfect outlap? It's a very difficult skill. If we compare these two, this is Verstappen's in-lap, the yellow medium tyres on the left, outlap with the new shiny white banded hard tyre on the right. And he's actually got loads more grip now on the hards because he's running those mediums all the way to lap 18. So if we play it through, we can just see a few differences early on. So to start, the lap on the left, the in-lap is a little bit ahead because, of course, the outlap, he's just come out of the pit. So he's accelerating up to speed on the hard tyre. So it's not for long. Immediately now, when you're on the outlap, you suddenly got the feeling of grip. You can attack once again, and it just feels so nice to drive. Braking point into turn 3, very similar for the old tyres and the new tyres. He doesn't want to overcook it, particularly when the tyres are maybe not up to perfect temperature either. It's the easiest way to make a big mistake on the outlap. So the brake point's similar, and that is shown by the fact that when we get to the apex here, it's still actually the outlap that's a little bit behind the in-lap at this point. The lap on the left, still ahead, and that's because he had that speed into turn 1 and into the brakes into turn 3. No gain for Verstappen. But just watch the right-hand side here through these corners. So much front end for Max. And now he's just finding out how much grip he has compared to where he's been driving with loads of understeer and pretty worn front tyres. If we play it through to here, you can just see, look at that difference already. This is through turns, the apex of 3, 4, 5 and 6. A lot of those you're front limited, where you're just scrubbing the fronts basically, and they're just big understeer. You can also see now on the right front a sort of line of graining that Verstappen's got on the left-hand side on the medium tyres. The hard tyres are fine. They've got the grip. So as a driver, you've got to try and extract everything you can without making a mistake. This is like a qualifying lap. Now we play it through up here, and once again into the chicane. Easy to outbrake yourself, getting a bit excited with the amount of grip. So Max doesn't brake particularly later than the in-lap actually, but he carries that speed through. And then this is the sector where he makes up all the big time to Hamilton and to himself, of course, on those tyres on the left. He's just got front end, and for these long corners, quite fast, but like 180 degrees, most of them here, you're just waiting for the fronts, and when they're worn and they've grained a little bit, you haven't got the grip. You're just understeering, and it's very difficult. Here on the left-hand side, Verstappen bolts for the pit lane and comes in. So he's actually been absolutely thrashing that on his in-lap as well. That's a really fast in-lap compared to a really fast out-lap, and you can just see the difference in the grip that you have with the new tyres, and that is exactly why the undercut is so powerful. And for Verstappen, it was critical because it got him into the lead of the race. If we have a look at the data of this, you can see exactly where the lap time comes from. So right at the start of the lap, you can see here he's coming in from a much lower speed in the red. That's the outlap. The blue is the flying lap. And Verstappen's coming in from a lower speed, brakes a little bit earlier. He's just put on this set of tyres. But immediately through turn 2, he gains a bit of time just there. He's already getting more confidence on the tyres. And then just look at the minimum speeds all the way through these corners. The braking is not that much different, but all the time here, all those low speed apexes, the red line much higher. And that's because he's able to just run the speed, and the front tyres are now gripping, where he's just been driving away with sort of dwindling grip on the front axle for a while. The same if we zoom in to the chicane here, you can see the red line fractionally later on the brakes, but it's through the mid corner here. It's through this part where Verstappen's gaining the big time, a bit on the left and then a load of speed on the right, and now the lap time's really coming to him. And because he's not pushing the braking super hard, he's not risking the lockup that can just make the outlap an absolute mess on the hard tyre and the cold tyre, something they're not particularly used to. Finally, the final sector, and this is where it's just night and day, and this is the bit that particularly caught out Hamilton and Mercedes. They weren't expecting the undercut to be this powerful. And again, this is Max compared to Max, but we're comparing a new hard tyre to a used medium tyre that the drivers were all complaining of early on. And look, through Bose, turn 11, this is monumental. Just way faster in. Now he's got the confidence on the brakes as well. He knows after a couple of sectors, he now knows he's got the grip. They're up to temp, go and attack. So he's way later on the brakes, way quicker through the middle of the corner, and he can just commit to the throttle as well. If you look at that throttle trace, Max is just able to just stamp straight on the pedal way quicker than he is on the blue, where he's just having to feather it a lot more in this phase here. So it's all good. Keeps it through turn 13. Here you can see the difference where at the end of the lap, that's just the difference of the blue much quicker because he's peeling off right to the pit lane. So he's doing a completely different line, and then sure enough, he slows down for the pit limiter and the red carries on. And it's through that really good outlap. No big mistakes at all. No mistakes from Verstappen. Really clean. He was trying to hold off Bottas, really. I don't know if he was particularly aiming for the lead of the race when he pitted, but as the lap unfolded, it became more clear that he actually had a chance because the grip difference between the used medium and the new hard was so much. Initially, he was trying to hold off Bottas, then forget about Bottas. He's trying to take the lead, and he did. Great stuff from Red Bull. Did Mercedes miss a bit of a trick? And the other area that's critical then in this undercut is not just the outlap from Verstappen or the inlap from Hamilton, but the pit stop phase itself. And this is where I think Mercedes were very surprised. They thought when Hamilton exited the pits, he'd be ahead of Verstappen by about a second. They were surprised, A, how fast Verstappen's final sector could be on the new tyres, but also this phase here, coming into the pits, which is actually underrated and completely critical, especially the season that we're having so far when the margins are so tight. Coming through the right-hander, you're now driving a different line compared to what you're doing pretty much all weekend. Bombing it into this turn 14 penultimate corner because you don't need to hug the left-hand side anymore. Now you run it wide, go to the right-hand side of the bollard, and the next job for the driver is to slow it down to this pit limiter line. 60 kph speed limit in Paul Ricard, quite a tight pit lane. And a big job for the drivers then to slow it down, not speed in the pit lane there. But you want to be as late as you can because if you slow it down early, you're being too cautious and you're just losing time. So there's plenty for the drivers to do in this phase. Hamilton's going to come and he has a nice open pit entry, whereas Verstappen has to weave around the Mercedes crew. And the pit stop times between them were very, very close. They were within a tenth. But somehow, in this process, Mercedes lost a little bit of time. So that was a look into the crucial pit stop phase, the in-laps, the out-laps, and the way through the pit lane as well. Critical points, but there was another big moment later on that actually decided this race right at the death. For more on that, tune into F1 TV.